All right, Emily, we are officially live on
Do
Facebook. So, how are
we
you
have any
feeling
viewers? I'm good.
today?
How are you?
I don't think we have any viewers just yet, but I will definitely keep an eye on it. We are going live from my Facebook public profile, as well as my Photoshop group, Photoshop with Pratik. If you want to be a part of the conversation on both ends, you can. I'm going to give a couple of seconds for people to tune in. If you are here and actually checking out the live stream, please comment because we do definitely want to have an engaged community here. Akash and Jan Gonzalez are watching. They are also
Ooh,
here.
hello,
And
guys.
Tim Miller is here as well as our first guest. He's hilarious, by the way. Do you know Tim Miller?
I don't know Tim Miller, but that name sounds a little bit familiar.
Yeah, he's a really fun guy. He always does these lives a lot. He gave me some really good advice last time I tried to go
Hmm.
live from Facebook. So
Ah, hi,
shout out.
Tim.
All right, and Jan's in the comments for sure from the Philippines.
That makes me
Jan,
happy.
what time is it there in the Philippines right now? Very curious to see where everybody's tuning in from. So please let us know where you're actually tuning in from. And Emily's tuning in as well. She
I just tuned in on my phone. I wanted to see some of the comments.
Brandi Nicole is in the comments as well.
Oh, she's all right.
Yeah, our friend Alicia is in the comments. Jay's
Oh,
here, of
that makes
course.
me happy.
David Franco is here. He
Oh,
says
hi, David.
these are so fun. I hope it's fun, David. after after this is over, we're gonna see which one had the most number of views and who had the best time compared to like Brandy's one last time. So you all have to jump in
That's
here.
tough competition.
Kelly Robitaille, Joshua Simmons, David
Oh,
Nicole
man. Oh,
Smith.
we got all my friends here.
I know, this is so exciting. I wish next time we should definitely have people just join in. And I think that's what I will do. This will actually allow multiple people to join in. So if you're up for it, effort, Emily, at the last like maybe 10 minutes or so, we'll just post the link publicly and then we'll see
Oh,
if
let's do it.
yeah.
I'm totally into that.
All right, cool. So if any of you are here, please stay because I would love to have a group conversation here at the end. Totally impromptu. We didn't plan this out. But today is all about Emily. Emily,
And Pratik.
we'll see. Emily, we have gone actually quite far back in terms of how we met, when we first met. Do you remember the first time that we actually got to meet in person?
I absolutely do.
What was that like?
It was scary.
What? Scary.
So for me, it was like 5 years ago, and you and Bella were doing a phase 1 standout tour. And you had a spot in LA that you were just like giving for free, like one spot. You posted about it on Facebook, and this was before I knew you guys. Like in the photo community, like we were all friends on Facebook, and I admired, like Bella was my all-time favorite photographer. I admired your work, and so I was like, wow, of course, like I want to go to this event. And then I went and was super shy, and so I was like, I'm just not like, neither of these people know who I actually am, so I'm gonna like sit in the front row but be really quiet. And then within like 5 seconds after, like Bella looked up and she saw me, she's like, Emily Teague! And like raced over to me, and she's like, you have to meet Pratik.
Wow, that's how she sounds like. Amazing.
And so we went over to you, and you were just like about to speak, and like we're pretty busy, and I was like, he doesn't like me.
Yeah. What gave you that impression though?
I think you were just really busy, you know? Like
Okay.
I think I was probably just like afraid and you were busy. And then a couple months later, I think I was traveling through Europe. The photography was coming up. The photography show was coming up in the UK. And I forget if it was you or Bella who messaged me, but one of you was like, oh, I know you're in Europe. Like, are you going to go to this like in a few weeks? And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. And I think that's where we really actually became friends. So much so that I actually came home with you and Bella.
That's right, in a very plutonic way.
So we went from Birmingham in the UK to Oxford, and I stayed with you guys for a few days. And then after that, I signed up for your retouching workshop in Oslo, and we met over there. And then had the most amazing time in Oslo. And then it was just like, we kept seeing each other all around the world. And now you're one of my best friends. So
I know. This is really great because I think this, this whole dynamic is incredible because we got to meet at conferences and events, and it's so topical now that we don't have them in person. How does that make you feel this year, especially?
It's super heartbreaking. I think for me, like through the community that we've built over the past four years, really, like those are definitely my people. And it really sucks to not be able to see your people. So I love conferences. And it's like, for me, the main ones are Photo Plus in New York, WPPI in Vegas, and then the photography show in the UK. And then recently the Portrait Masters as well in Arizona.
That's true.
But yeah, to not have that it definitely feels like there's something missing. I'm hopeful.
I think there not being conferences this year, has it given you a time to kind of reflect back and figure out what you want to do for the coming years as well?
Definitely. I think that's been for both Brandy, my roommate, and I, like one of the good things about quarantining is like actually being forced to slow down. I think all of us have this personality of like, we are so determined to move as fast as we can and to accomplish as much as we can. And it's great, but also it's really exhausting. And when you're constantly running, doing these amazing things, it's really hard to slow down and be like, okay, what are my goals? What do I want to do? And this time more than ever has forced us to do that. So yeah, I've had a ton of realizations just since really April. It feels really good.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I think like even our relationship was cultivated at conferences, as you mentioned in your story. And I think, people tend to think of conferences as places to go look at gear. But I think we don't even go for the conference. We go for the connections that we all have and meeting new friends and finding people that we can connect with online.
It's funny, this last year at WPPI, right before the pandemic, like, I don't know about you, but for me, I didn't even enter the trade show floor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't either.
Mostly because like the purpose of going is to be with our friends, right? And it's kind of an excuse of like, great, all of our friends are coming X amount of times per year to these trade shows. So it's definitely not about the gear for us. Like it's entirely about community, at least in my eyes.
I know, same here. And, like all the people that we have in the comments today, we've, most of them that we've met, I think they are here and present because we had that connection in person. So I really do hope next year we can kind of make that happen again.
Yeah, it's looking hopeful, right? Like all the news of the vaccines coming. I'm looking at like fall of 2021 and keeping my fingers crossed for sure.
Is there anything as an industry kind of leader would you like to see happen that hasn't happened yet in terms of events?
I think something I guess that I'm wanting to happen as well, but that I'm also really curious of how this is going to happen is just like smaller events really focused on community, right? So we see trade shows like Photo Plus, WPPI, really any photo trade show, like the numbers are dwindling more and more. And it's continuing to go in that direction. Like even before the pandemic hit, like things were not looking good for trade shows financially. Unfortunately, because of people like us who are there for the community and not there for the actual gear, right? So I think that kind of leaves a space to investigate like how do we create an event that is about community, but also with anything, there has to be money involved in that as well for people staying somewhere, for plane tickets, like for people organizing it, for education. I'm really curious about what that's going to look like. And I think next year, the year after that, it's definitely going to be a thing. And I'm really excited for that.
Will we ever see an Emily retreat?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that look like?
I mean, the dream would be like taking you, Brandy, and I, and going to Barcelona and hosting a retreat anywhere from like 10 to 50 people. And 50 seems like a lot.
50? Wow.
50. I think it's very possible. Totally manageable. You're like, I don't know about that.
I was like, wait a second, we gotta discuss this in a minute. Yeah.
Next, they're gonna be like posting on social, being like, okay, we are hosting a 50-person retreat.
Yeah, everyone's excited booking their tickets already.
Yep.
Speaking of which, now would be a great time to book plane tickets and stuff, because everything is kind of on sale, because everything hasn't caught up yet. But if we plan out ahead of time, it could be quite feasible to do it now.
I've been thinking a lot about that too, just looking at flights, looking at Airbnb prices. Like, they're so insanely low. And it's hard because like next month, the month after that, obviously it's still not safe. But
Yeah.
summer is sounding possibly safe. No, I've thought about that so much too.
Yeah, I agree. I think and Brandy says, let's go to Spain. Why did you say Spain specifically? Is this a little thing that you guys planned, or what?
I mean, Brandy and I, she's actually sitting right next to me right now. We talk a ton. We've talked about like where to do retreats, because that's definitely something that we're eyeing in the hopefully near coming future.
Yeah.
For me, Barcelona is like the most special place in the world. Like, it's the first place that I traveled to when I was 19, and like 19 is when I started traveling endlessly, really, until I moved to New York and finally settled down a little bit. But for a while, it was like every 3 months, I would save up as much money as I could, travel for 3 months, spend all of my money, come back home, raise money again, and just repeat that for years. And so when I went to Barcelona for the first time, I just fell in love with people there, with friends, with the culture. I love Spanish and can speak it poorly. It just really felt wonderful. And so even though I left after a month and a half, I ended up coming back more and more, and have developed some really close friendships there, and just love everything about it. So I think it would be really fun to take people there and show them a lot of the stuff that, like, if you're going to Barcelona for the first time, you're probably not going to see. So for me, it's like, we're going to Barcelona, guys.
All right. Molly says, Brandy and Emily retreat 2021.
That makes me happy.
And if you are commenting from the Facebook group itself, it doesn't show the exact username, but I will definitely shout you out. Speaking of little interesting facts about Emily, now that I'm going to get into some of the questions for you.
I'm interested.
Tell us about your history in Spanish. So a lot of people don't know, Emily speaks pretty good Spanish. And I learned that because we went to Mexico and she started speaking in Spanish. I was like, wow, she can order tacos for us.
Yeah, it's come in handy. So I started when I was a freshman in high school, and I hated it at the time. Like, it was just, I had a very intense Spanish teacher who I've grown to love. But I remember every time walking into Spanish class having so much anxiety and being like, I cannot do this. And so I was forced to do it for 2.5 years, and then dropped out of Spanish and started doing other stuff. But I had enough of the basics to have conversations. And then when I was 19, and I was like, okay, I think it was actually 18 when I decided I'm going to Spain, and then 19 when I actually did. I had practiced a ton before that. And then when I was there, I went by myself. I didn't have any friends there, and I was there for a month and a half. So I was really forced to speak Spanish, which was great. I was staying at an Airbnb with a woman she was just like an Airbnb host, right? I was renting a room in her apartment, but we ended up becoming such good friends that now every time I go back to Barcelona, I meet her for like a wine night, and I'm friends with all of her kids. She invited me to her daughter's wedding. She's offered me to like stay for free with her anytime. She's like she's from Argentina, but living in Spain. So she's my Argentinian Spanish aunt. And she taught me a ton. And she would I told her that I wanted to really learn Spanish. And she was like, great. From now on, we're only speaking in Spanish. And I was like, well, let's not go that far. And it was great. And so whenever I go back to Spain, that's definitely my chance when I get to speak Spanish. And then a couple of my really close friends are from Mexico City. So they are patient with me and will practice with me. And then going to Cuba, doing a photojournalism project there was the first time I really got to do something work-related while speaking Spanish. So definitely grateful for that skill set. And at the same time, always trying to improve. And it's been a long time since I've been able to practice. So one of my goals is to definitely become fluent and start practicing more here in New York. I know there's a bunch of meetup groups that you can find other people and have conversations. My grammar is really bad. I'm just going to say that.
Brandy was mentioning Duolingo. And do you use that as well?
I do, but Brandy is the real inspiration here. She uses it every single day and has been for like 500 plus days. She does it with French, and I wish that she did it with Spanish. She's going to, but then we could actually speak together. So I do Duolingo, and I'll get really obsessed with it, which is just a part of my personality. It's like I have a very obsessive personality, which works really well for learning stuff like photography or video or editing. But unfortunately, it can be like highs and lows. So I'll get super obsessed and do it every day for like a month and be like, I should do like 4 hours a day. And then like the moment that I miss one day, then I'm like, it's okay to miss one day more. And then it just really falls off. So
I can understand.
do you relate to that at all?
I do. I recently started learning 3D, maybe like
That's so
3 months ago.
cool.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved the process of learning, and I was able to actually create something with it. But what happened was, because I wasn't in practice with it every day, or really was inspired to create something every day, I kind of put it off on the side, and I kind of, not forgot, but I just lost my interest. And I realized interest was learning something new, not necessarily the program specifically, but just something different.
Yeah, especially, and again, I don't know if you feel this way too, but during quarantine, things for me feel very stagnant, just because like I'm not running around, I'm not shooting a ton, I'm not seeing my friends, like, and it's been great, like especially as an introvert, I've had a blast. But I do feel that stagnantness, and so I think learning feels really good because I'm like, okay, I'm still moving forward. It's something I can do from my computer, like. Brandy and I have been watching a lot of masterclass or looking for other ways to learn, tutorials, anything where at least it feels like we're moving forward,
Yeah. Would you say, if Brandy wasn't there with you as a roommate, how would you have imagined your quarantine to have gone, and how would you have been different?
If I was completely alone?
Yeah.
It would be really hard. So again, like I am an introvert. I love being alone. I've lived alone. It was good, but like Brandy's all right, She's like next to me making noises. It's really like, I also know that, and going back to when I was traveling, like I would travel for 3 months at a time by myself. And I remember before I would leave, I'd be like, I cannot wait to be alone, because when I was home, it was like so many different friends being like, let's get coffee, let's get lunch, like really needing my time. And that felt really overwhelming. And then I would go away. And for the first 2 weeks, it was like, this is great. And then after about 2-3 weeks of being alone, especially in a country where I don't speak the language, I would start to get really lonely. And it was this weird feeling of like, I didn't know I could feel loneliness. Turns out I can. And beyond just having a roommate, like she's kind of my best friend, So, and it is like we're so good at like keeping each other motivated. There's all these different practices we have where we're checking in with each other and making sure that we're both growing and reaching our goals, and that's all right,
You're like houseplants.
We are like houseplants.
That water each other.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm just thinking about what houseplant Brandy would be right now.
Yes. What houseplants would you both be? That's a good question.
I'm like looking behind us to see all of our
That's
plants.
cheating. You don't know your plants. What kind of houseplant mother are you?
I think Brandy might be. Man, I think we both might be fiddle leaves.
Oh, could you describe that for the non-plant aficionados here?
Can I show you? I'm gonna bring one over. I have a little guy and a big guy.
Let's see.
Quickly, so Brandy's is the big one. Mine is the small one. So Brandy's is like very old, but mine's just a little baby.
Brandy's is very old.
It is, yeah. This is my fiddle leaf. I'm like showing you from all the angles.
Wow.
Yeah, he's very cute.
I like that accent light, Heather.
Yeah. So I think we'd both be one of those.
You're both fiddle leaves.
I think so, yeah. I mean, we're both different fiddle leaves, there's some differences. Either that, or actually I have one more.
Quickly, let's kick her out of the room. Oh shit, she can still hear.
I think I might be this plant right here.
Oh wow, I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of wacky.
Wacky?
Yeah, it's a wacky plant, I feel like I have a lot in common with this plant.
What about that plant resembles your personality?
Well, so I have like a treatment in my hair right now, and I'm straightened it so it looks like it's nice and calm.
Yeah.
But naturally, I have this crazy hair, and it used to be red, so it's like this crazy red frizzy hair, which kind of looks like this guy, you know?
Yeah. Are you gonna?
Also, he just looks like he has a personality that's like kind of, you know,
Yeah.
that,
Interesting.
that can be me sometimes too.
Do you ever name your plants?
Oh, absolutely. When we first started, we named every single one of them, and then we just started collecting them more and more. And now there's too many to name, but a few of them do have names. Like Olivia was my very first plant. She's over there. She's grown a lot.
Wow, I had no idea that you named your plants. What about the fiddle leaf you have there?
Did I name that one?
Well,
This one right here.
oh, I forget.
I forget.
Ah, that's a shame.
Yeah. Maybe we should name it. How about Oliver?
If any of you have any good name suggestions, please leave it in the comments.
I
And
would
the
love
most
to know.
likely will be the name of
I'm
the new
gonna
plant.
say until someone comes up with something better, it's gonna be Oliver. But I bet someone could come up with something better.
Yeah, I'm very curious too. We have a lot of really great people that have just joined recently too, and wanted to say how cool it is watching the comments. And Emily will catch up, hopefully, the comments after the session's over.
I'm excited to hear what people say.
So we have some questions that came in yesterday.
Are
Jay
they hard?
Coy says, what about the orchid that you have?
Well, it's back there.
Is that that's it?
It started growing these like little legs.
Oh, yeah. Justin Rosenberg says, any of them named Felix?
No, we have enough Felix like in the apartment complex, and we don't like as great as it would be. We don't need him in our plants as well, even though that would be really great.
Oh my gosh, he'll start lighting everything with the Christmas lights.
Oh, this is really good wine.
It'll be like, we have one bulb set up here.
All these questions are really fun.
Really illuminate the stems. Okay, so Molly, well, let's go through the questions we had yesterday, and then we'll jump into some of them we have today. So if you have any questions you want to ask Emily, you can definitely leave in the comments or stay till the end where I could just jump a few of you on our live broadcast, which would be kind of interesting. Okay, Dave Schick says, what is Emily's favorite word? Before you answer that question, I want everyone to, in the comments, tell us what you think Emily's favorite word is. I'm going to post this as a little banner here. And even if you're watching the rebroadcast, you're going to go ahead and type in what you think Emily's favorite word is, and then continue hitting play. And then let's see if you can guess it right.
Wait. Do you favorite word as like this sounds beautiful, or favorite word that I use?
Both. Let's do both.
Okay, Brandy might need to help with favorite word that I use. I'm gonna think of my favorite. So I love the word honey. Honey is one of my favorite words.
Is it?
Yeah, it like honey. There's certain words where when someone says it, it evokes this very clear visual in my head. And honey to me just sounds kind of like warm and comforting and like luxury. And yeah, it's you know.
Wow, I actually didn't know that answer.
Yeah, there's a few like honey, raspberries, wine.
Yeah. All the roads lead back to wine, doesn't it, Emily?
Yeah, also like gold is a great word. I mean, gold just makes, I love gold. So
Wine and gold and honey. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Really,
I'm imagining that now. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great.
that'd be a nice color palette, actually, like gold and wine and honey. Like, it sounds really pretty.
I think for so long that's why I had red hair, because it was like my wine and then my gold and my honey was on the neck. But
wow.
now it's like gold and honey and I guess wine.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Now we're gonna go through all the pictures of you and see what connections we have to those color palettes.
I'm just like trying to become a color palette every day.
What is your least favorite words?
Oh, well, I don't want to tell you because then you'll use them.
I would not
can't
use
say.
them.
I love you guys, but I know how y'all work, and I can't.
We would never use them against you.
Like, I'm not gonna tell you my least favorite words again because you'll use them, and every time I see it, I'm gonna cringe. But I guess like I don't like words like I'm like looking around to see.
Who's watching you?
Oh, like scum. Like that. No, that's like actually kind of a fun word. I would call someone scum. Um, I'll think of some.
Okay, how about a better question? What is the word that you use the most? Like, it's not your favorite word, but you just find yourself using all the time.
I'm gonna bring in my phone a friend.
Your confidant? Okay.
I'm gonna pull her over here because I feel like she knows better than I do because I just say them. She has to listen to them all day.
I've been listening to like the 2 seconds later.
So okay, wait, because in the chat you're behind. To catch you up, what is a word that I say all the time?
Oh no! Like an Emilyism? Not
Yeah.
that's different than like a word.
Yeah, an Emilyism is like a term, or it could be like a behavior that I have.
Let's do terms.
She says yum yum.
Yum yum.
Like whether it's food or drinks, or like yum yum. What did she do? I'm trying to think of like anything else. I need like a scenario. If you give me a scenario, I'll tell you how.
Like
When she gets frustrated, I would say.
Frustrated.
Mm.
Oh. I think like for me it's like, oh, right. Well, and then that's more. It's like a whole acting out of a skit, you know?
What? What does that even mean?
Just like your mannerisms. You were just like, huh.
That's actually true. I can't imagine myself being like, okay. Yeah. You gotta use the voice too.
Yeah. Well, I can't do the name voice.
That's fair. She's right.
So basically, passive aggressiveness is your thing.
Whoa. Let's slow down. I would say calm and collected.
Oh, okay, cool.
Passive aggressive. I would call it like cutely trying to figure out what to do next.
Did you hear that, Teague? Wow. What a friend worked out.
You know what, though? This is interesting because this also goes back in the topic of being an introvert, because everyone who kind of knows you or doesn't know you thinks of you as such a really friendly and bubbly person, which is a very justified thing to say. Wait, hold on, let me finish. But it's not always the case, because this energy also invites a lot of people that want to get to know you, even though you might not have the energy to do that for everyone, right?
That's very accurate.
Yeah. And I feel the same way, where I really love having conversations with people, but the reason why I have meaningful and deeper conversations or silly conversations is because, I have the energy and capacity to give to that person or that situation at the time, but it takes a lot out of me, and it takes a lot of me to, it takes me time to recuperate.
Yeah.
And would you say you're the same way as well?
Oh, absolutely. And it's actually a problem. Just because when I can, like, for example, at a party, right? Like at a party, I am 100% myself. I am living my extroverted life for a few hours and it's great. And I love it. And it's so fun, right? But for the other 21 hours of my day, that's not the case necessarily, right? And there's days where like, and I've talked about this in other videos as well, but like on set, I am always an extrovert. And I think I learned probably when I was like 17 or 18 that to be, and I'm speaking purely for myself, my own observations, but like to be successful, you need to be extroverted, right? And I know there's all these cases that go against that, but that is what I decided. And I was like, well, fuck, that sucks, because one, like I used to be a lot more shy and a lot more awkward and like social anxiety just to the max, right? And on top of all of that, like, of course, an introvert to go with those things. And I knew that I really had to combat that if I wanted to reach my goals. And it's something I'm always working on. So fortunately, I'm at the point now where like I've gotten past all shyness. I don't consider myself a shy person anymore, which is great. I feel like I've killed this enemy in some ways. And at the same time, like I'm very much an introvert, right? And so it's hard when people meet me either at a party or they see me on Instagram or Facebook, and I am outgoing because that's how I'm comfortable around large groups of people. But then, people will be like, okay, let's go get coffee or let's go get dinner. And it's like, one, it's very, very hard to do because I am a hermit and I will avoid you, unfortunately. And I feel bad about it. And then when we do go out, like I think I'm lovely, but I'm not, there's not as much energy, right? So it's hard. And I'm getting a lot better at just being really honest and communicating that. I actually had a conversation earlier tonight where a friend was like, hey, I really want to talk to you about something, like, let's jump on a call. And there's also just a lot going on right now, right? Like there's all these different projects that I'm working on. And I was like, how about instead you send me like a voice message or a video message? Like, does that work? And it was like, his response was like, I'd really prefer it if we could have a call. And so I avoided the message for a while, which I'm also notorious for and feel very bad about. Like if something feels overwhelming, I'm like, great, I have these 50 other things to do. Let me focus on that. And finally, we had a really wonderful and honest conversation tonight where I said, I'm sorry, there's just so much going on. And being the proper introvert that I am, like, I need to protect that energy. And I would love to talk about what's new for both of us, but like that has to be here in this chat. And I can't, at least right now, I can't jump on that phone call. And he was super receptive to it, right? So it was another lesson for me that like, I can be myself, but I need to speak honestly and communicate well about what my needs are.
Yeah. And it's such a great, topic of discussion because you are a really good example of somebody who was an introvert, managed to achieve a level of success, but also is very open, especially in times like this, about how you manage that energy. And being open about it gives people acceptance that it's okay if you don't always have that energy all the time. You're not supposed to, especially if you're the type of person. And, we feel bad all the time when people are like, hey, I want to meet up. Hey, I want to hang out. Hey, do you have time? And often, as you know, when we're traveling all the time, that happens all the time. And it's not a bad thing, but we would love people to understand that, sometimes if we say no, it's not because we don't want to see you. It's because we physically don't have the capacity to be ourselves.
And there's times where I would definitely, all the time, where I wish I had more energy and more desire to talk to everyone at once, right? Because I love people, I truly do. Yeah. But I am very much like a cat where once my social battery goes down, like I truly need that alone time to recharge it before I can go out and be a happy cat again.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like we don't really mean harm to anyone, but it also tells you that you can evolve as a person. And you mentioned this, interestingly enough, you said that you felt like a part of you was killed off. Why did you use those terms?
I think because I have never wanted to be shy. I've never wanted to be an introvert. I've never wanted social anxiety. Like those are all parts of me that I'm very aware of, that I'm like, these are not convenient, And it's not that these are bad things. It's just to do what I want to do, they're not convenient for me, right? And there's also a part that I like that I'm an introvert, right? Like that feels good to me. That feels very much who I am. But at least for shyness, like in my mind, like I've been shy my entire life and that's always gotten in the way of stuff, right? Whether it's a job opportunity or speaking honestly with someone, properly communicating, whatever it was, I felt that being shy was something that was not enabling for me. And so that is something that I'm glad I've been able to work on over time.
I agree. I felt the same way where initially I was the same. I was completely shy. I didn't like to talk to people because I didn't know how. And also I felt always judged about it. And over time, I've learned to be more extroverted and balance that. So I feel like extroversion and introversion are tendencies that are our default positions in life, but it doesn't mean that they have to be you forever. You can exercise them and grow. And I think you are a good testament to seeing that evolve.
Thank you. It's fun, especially for our relationship, because you have known me for 5 years now, where 5 years ago I was really shy and a lot more introverted than I am now. So that's fun.
Yeah. And Emily, you mentioned perfectly, like when you came to my first workshop, she was just like a nervous ball.
I was so terrified. It was really bad. Teague and I were just talking about this story actually before we started this chat.
Yeah.
But the first workshop was in Oslo. You and I had known each other for, I don't know, maybe like under half a year. So not a long time. And I thought you were the bee's knees, which I still think you're the bee's knees.
Then I'm down the bee's elbows.
Yeah. I had shown up with a friend of mine. Well, I met a friend at the workshop. We had shown up like a little bit late. And in my head, I really hate being late. Like that's something that really stresses me out no matter what it is too. Like if I'm 5 minutes late, like I am like clicking my fingers on the table. So we showed up late, which already I was stressed about. I went to go get some coffee, and I think I had maybe said hi to you really briefly or waved at you, but I was like, he's like doing his thing. Like even though you were just like prepping something, I was like, I'm not gonna go disturb him. So I'm like getting my coffee in my own little world, and you just like came up next to me, and I think the first thing you said to me was like, "You seem more nervous than I am." And my first thought was like, he knows. I was just mortified, which is one of my favorite stories now, but at the time it was really tough.
You definitely wore your emotions on your sleeve really easily for people to identify. It's just kind of
Totally. And I knew that I did, right? And that was another thing that I could recognize about myself, like that I did that I was shy. Like I've always been very self-reflective, which is good. So seeing that and being like, okay, that's not good. How do we change that, right?
Yeah.
And it's always a work in progress, and I'm sure it always will be, but it gets easier.
But many of you have known Emily for quite a while too, and you've seen her progress even in the last like 2 or 3 years, whether it's been her work, whether it's been her personality, how she manages things. It's very interesting. And Chris Noakes says he just wants to say that he respects everything being said so much. And Mikey Liu says, "A freaking men." And we have a lot of people who kind of relate to the situation that you're in, the way that we're feeling, It's also why when we do conferences, we get so exhausted by the end of it because we truly don't have any more left to give.
Oh man, they truly like my favorite part of the year. And we do it for like 5 days. And then after that, I need like a week to be by myself, even though I'm so incredibly happy during that time. It's just that battery aspect, right?
Yeah. And also, we're the type of people that even if we're working, we don't necessarily have to talk all the time just because we're there. We could be quiet and also work.
I mean, and that's something like both Brandy and I are introverts, which I think a lot of people who only follow us on social media like that might be a surprise to hear. And we sit, she's literally a foot away from me at all times. And we're working, but we aren't necessarily engaging. We might say something to each other every once in a while. I mean, it's not like we don't talk. It's just like, it's such a comfortable thing to be silent together. And like Pratik, when you and I are working somewhere together, I know we have this too. And there's just like this comfort in being silent, right? Mm-hmm. And that is everything. Like it's so nice.
Yeah. And it's good to know because obviously this is not the only way people work, right? Like there's a lot of people who prefer actually talking while working and being engaged, and that's okay too. But the takeaway here, I think, is we have to find the people that we best suit our personalities and keep them, within our working circle too.
Yeah, definitely. And not to say that like some of my closest friends are extroverts. And it's just knowing that we have different needs, and then also knowing that we love each other, and then meeting those needs halfway.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Let me actually go to a couple other questions that we have. Aiden Grace says, what are the best ways to reach out to brands for partnerships, and what sort of things should we be working on in order to work with them and have it be beneficial for both sides? Now, to preface this, Emily is a marketing genius when it comes to her social media management and everything related to her current work, her past work. Even initially, Emily and I, when we met, she actually started helping me and Bella with our social media. And it was such a great experience working with her. And then from there, she went on to work with ProEDU and then to Ellenchrome. So I think, everyone recognizes her strengths when it comes to awareness for online, social media, etc. And obviously, now that she works with Ellenchrome, that's such a huge deal. And to preface this,
too.
Yeah, please do not approach her with any questions related to Ellenchrome. This is, I highly want to say that because it happens every time we mention something, people tend to want to take, jump in and try to get what they can. But I want to specifically talk about how it is for you in relation to working and reaching out to brands, whether it's photography or your current working relationship.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Aiden asked that question, because it's something funny enough that I love to talk about. And at the same time, like, I don't post about that anywhere on my social media, other than like a small group of friends that will talk about it, right? And the main reason, like, I do work currently both for Ellen Chrome and for Capture One, and they're both wonderful brands to work with. I respect them. I've been using both for years before I ever worked for them. But the moment that people find out that you work for those brands, you get so many messages being like, hey, we haven't talked in a while. How have you been? By the way, you know, and I get it. I respect it, because photographers have got to hustle, and I know it. And at the same time, I'm just like, oh, you know, it's overwhelming. It really is. And I hate having to say no to friends, because if it was up to me and there were not budget limitations or not rules, like, I would just give away all the free stuff to every one of my friends and be like, you get this and you get this, you know. But I really do at that point have to separate myself from being a friend and working for a company. And so I'll speak mostly to Ellen Chrome, because that's most of the work that I'm doing currently. I am their global community manager. I've been doing that work for over a year now. And before that, doing some freelance work for Mac Group, which was their US distributor, working for brands like Timba, X-Rite, Saconic, a bunch of different photo brands. And so it's been really interesting, not just to work for one or two brands, but at one point I was working for 12 brands at once, which was really overwhelming, but super interesting it was a lot, but interesting to look into each one of their communities and see how they interact differently, or what the branding messages was, what their marketing strategy was. Like, I've learned a ton, which is very cool to also take that and apply it to my own knowledge if I'm ever wanting to work for a brand, or just for marketing in general, right? So for Ellen Chrome, people, if I could give you like a little resume of like, this is who I'm looking for. The first one is not as romantic as some of the other details, but I am looking for people with large social followings, right? And the reason for this is because I'm looking for, I'm going to say you, pretend that's you.
I'm so excited.
I'm looking for you to post about this so I can reach your audience, right? Like, this is marketing. As much as I just want to help people, there's also, of course, how does it benefit the company? And so normally the influencers that I'm working with, and I hate using the word influencer because it has connotations that I don't apply to the brilliant, talented photographers that I work with. But we haven't come up with another term yet, so I'm going to use it for now. The influencers that I prefer to work with have a following of 10,000 plus. That's kind of the baseline for me. Again, because I'm trying to reach their audiences, right? Number one of all, beyond anything in the world, of course, they have to have really great work, right? Like, I'm really fortunate to work with one of the best lighting brands in the world, and we are a global brand that, especially for my position now, when I was working with Mac Group, I was only focusing on their US audience. Now that I'm working directly for Ellen Chrome, I'm focusing on a global audience. And there are so many talented photographers in the world, right? So I'm having to be selective about people that have incredible work. There are lighting experts that have followings of over 10,000 plus, preferably 20,000 plus if that's an option. And I keep saying, and most importantly, these are all really important. So I'm not going to, even though I'm going down this list, they're all like top tier priorities, right?
So diplomatic.
I'm looking for people that truly love the brand, right? Like, I've had people come to me and be like, hey, I use X brand right now, but I could switch over to Ellen Chrome if you gave me gear, right? And like, those are not the people I want to work with, right? Because I don't want to work with you just because I'm giving you free stuff so you're going to talk about my product, right? Like, I want people that are truly interested in the product. And a lot of the influencers that I'm bringing on are people that have never tried Ellen Chrome before, right? And so that first part of the relationship is me saying, hey, are you interested in Ellen Chrome equipment? What light are you currently using? I'm going to send you a modifier, right? So maybe I send them a Rotolux, which is our most popular modifier. It's what Annie Leibovitz uses. Don't know if you've heard her name. And so that's kind of the first start of the relationship. And so I send out a modifier. We have a deal set up. Maybe it's something like, okay, I'm going to send you this, and in exchange, I'm looking for one post on your Instagram like a static image,
Mhm.
3 stories in your Instagram, and 1 post on Facebook, right? So the very first thing that I'm looking for is like, can you actually accomplish like these things that I'm asking for, right?
Mhm.
And can you create good imagery that matches all your other imagery?
Yeah.
Uh, because it can be really disappointing if you see someone who has an incredible portfolio and you decide to work with them, and there's been so many situations where it's been more than a modifier. I mean, there's been times where we've given out a lot of gear, a significant amount, and then have either gotten nothing back,
Mhm.
or we get stuff back that doesn't represent their portfolio at all, and it's very disappointing.
That's true. What do
I
you do
know
in
that
that
was a lot of
situation?
rambling.
When you get stuff like that, what happens? Do you just not work with them again? Do you tell them?
Unfortunately, that's a part of it. It's so I don't want to say how common it is, and that is the risky thing about working with friends.
Mhm.
Because I've had a lot of friends where that's been the case, and I still love them as a friend, right? And that again, separating myself as a photographer and a friend versus someone who is working in marketing for a brand. Like, if a friend does that, I can still adore them and be like, I get it, it happens. But as a brand, I know, okay, I am not going to work with you anymore. Like, you've just ruined that one chance you got, because there are a million other photographers who are fighting to get a foot in the door, and
Mhm.
you just lost your opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a good point, because we can still work with our friends, but ultimately we have to divide them into those 2 segments, where if professionally they don't live up to what they say, it's hard to work with them again and give them opportunities. But we can still be friends with them. And I think,
Totally. It's never something I take personally if that happens. I might be a little disappointed at first, because I'm like, but we could have had this great relationship and it could have led to so much more, you know?
yeah,
But ultimately, like, I understand what it's like to be a freelancer who is juggling a million different things and who drops the ball. I've dropped the ball myself a million times, so it's never going to be something that I hold against anyone.
interesting. Tell us a time where you've dropped the ball.
So many times.
Oh,
I mean, there's been a lot of opportunities that have come up, and in the moment I say, yeah, I would love to do this,
oh,
and it's
right. Yeah.
really great. But then it turns out I have too much going on. The
Mm.
one thing I will say that I've never done, which I'm proud of myself, is if someone has given me free product or has given me money, whatever it is, like if something has already been exchanged, then I am responsible for fulfilling my end of the deal. And if I didn't, I would be forever upset with myself, right? Like, that's something that it would constantly be over my head, and I
Mhm.
would be really bothered by that. But also, like, that's how you ruin relationships, right?
For sure.
So I guess my version of dropping the ball is me being like, let's do it, and then we don't talk again, which is also not cool. But
Yeah, it's a good point, because I think all of us tend to get really excited about opportunity, or we kind of envision the end goal happening, but we don't envision the work ahead. And you've gotten really good at really taking a second and analyzing it before just jumping in immediately.
totally. And I know that you know this, because I, like, in so many ways you are such a mentor to me, and I'm always going to you about opportunities like this, being like, Pratik, what do you think?
Yeah.
And for years I know this about myself now, but I love opportunities, right? Like, if anyone says let's do this, like, I am the first to be like, I am in, and fully believe it when I say it.
Yeah.
But then once it comes to the part where I start feeling overwhelmed, or I realize I also have all this other stuff going on, like, that's when it starts falling apart, right? And so it's knowing that about myself, when those opportunities come up now, I stop because I still get really excited for the first moment. And then I stop and I say, okay, is this something that I can accomplish? Is this something I can handle? And
Mm.
if I don't, am I willing to hurt the relationship with the person who's giving me this opportunity?
Right. Yeah, that's
So
true. I had a really funny comment from David Franco. He says, "I have a Rotolux and my work doesn't look like Annie. Can you troubleshoot?"
man, I can't tell, but those are real emails. Unfortunately, like, I don't have to deal with them, but I still see them, and ooh, they're rough.
You don't have to deal with them at all, huh?
I mean, fortunately, no, which I'm really grateful for, is, going into any position that I go into now, I make it very clear that I will not do customer service,
Mhm.
just because I've done it before for brands, and I start really not liking it.
Yeah.
So and again, it goes back to communication, right? Like if you communicate upfront and early, like this isn't something that I'm going to handle, you need someone specifically dedicated to this, way better.
Yeah, that's right. Well, fortunately, that's a great thing for you that you don't have to deal with it. I have a really great one. We have about 10 minutes left for the top of the hour. And I'm going to get a couple of really great questions from Alvin Chua, who says, what is your most awkward experience during a photo shoot?
I'm just like flipping through photo shoots in my head. The first one that comes to mind, I was in Barcelona. I mentioned earlier, I went there when I was 19, so I'm 19 at this point. And one of the reasons why I wanted to travel Europe was to shoot fashion in every city that I went to. And so I set up a shoot in Barcelona with a designer who I really respected. She had incredible work, and she was at that point the best designer I had worked with. I was so nervous and ecstatic. Like this shoot really meant a lot to me. And so we are at my makeup artist's apartment doing hair and makeup, getting everything ready. And I said, is anyone hungry? And they all wanted food, right? And I said, I'll go run and get it because I didn't have an assistant. So I run to a coffee shop, I get all this stuff. And the coffee shop was like a little whiles away from the apartment, right? In the meantime, something had come up for my designer / stylist, and she had to leave. And she said, oh no. And she's like, I know Emily wants me to leave these dresses that she's already specified. And the model said, oh no, actually, she said she likes this dress. And it was a dress that I hated. It whenever I think about it, it reminds me of a lobster. And from what the stylist had told me, is she's like, are you sure? And the model's like, oh yeah, no, she told me she really likes this one. Like, it's so beautiful. And the stylist was like, okay, and this is before, like, it wasn't a paid shoot. It wasn't that professional. Keep in mind, I'm 19. So like, there's a lot of stuff that wouldn't happen today that happened at that shoot. But I come back and the team explains that the stylist had to leave, but she's left this one dress for me. And I was it was a mix of livid, but really trying to keep my cool, because that's what your job as a photographer is, to make sure everyone on set feels really good.
Yeah.
But I was so pissed off. And so I don't know if that's as awkward as pissed. It was awkward because it was very hard for me to control how I felt about it. And the rest of the time shooting the model, I was trying as hard as I could to really be nice and to make her feel comfortable, while also being like, I can't believe this is happening. And I've just lost this one opportunity to work with this amazing stylist and designer.
And David Eckhoff says, is this before cell phones?
No, there were never cell phones. Yeah, she didn't text me. Nothing. She didn't call me. She didn't text me. Like,
oh man, that's rough.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so like I've gone back to Barcelona a bunch of times since then, but she moved away. So.
Oh, where did she move to?
Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a bit rough, but that's a good story to learn, especially because I love hearing how people don't always get exactly the outcome that they're expecting, because we all learn from it and we all have different experiences.
And every single shoot is a learning experience, right?
Yeah. And with photography, like, what are some of your inspirations and what keeps you motivated to grow? Because you're constantly evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I take inspiration from absolutely everywhere. Like, definitely the main source when I'm feeling a little down and like, okay, how do I get into the magic zone? Is Pinterest. Pinterest is huge for me. Mood boarding is super inspiring to me. There's so many photographers that I really admire and look up to. So if I'm feeling super down, maybe I'll pull up one of their sites and be like, oh yeah, this is the goal. Like, this is the direction I want to go in, right? But also recently, cinematography has been huge for inspiration. That's actually something that I'm spending a ton of time learning about and talking with cinematographer friends about, and just really wanting to explore that path. Yeah. So even that is inspiring me for photography and my lighting or direction I want to go in. And then final thing is just brandy.
Oh, really?
So something that we started doing maybe like 3 weeks to a month ago was starting to do these creative meetings. And so on Monday and Friday nights, we'll have meetings together. And Monday is more of like a work focused day where we go through an agenda and we say, okay, what did you accomplish last week? What are you going to accomplish this week? Have you had any paid inquiries? Do you tell me about your personal projects? It's this long, long list. And then we always end it with, what are you feeling grateful for and what's currently inspiring you? And every week that changes, right? And I prefer to do a lot of visuals. So I'm constantly showing Brandy like really creative advertisements, like commercials that I'm in love with, or I will show each other images from our mood boards. And then Friday is all about like manifesting and goal setting. So that's been inspiring me a lot too.
How often do you guys set the goals, and how much of that do you end up meeting, or do you just set them and then is most of it kind of we tried but then it didn't happen?
I guess we have it split up between like 5-year goals, 1-year goals, and weekly goals. And I think for the weekly goals, it's been really great because there's almost this sense of pressure of like each week on Mondays, I don't want to come back to Brandy and be like, I know I said I was going to do these 5 things, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I, of course, like Brandy would never judge me, but in my head, it's like, it's that accountability of like, I don't want to say I didn't do these things, no matter who it's with, right?
Yeah.
So that keeps us really good. And mostly we've been doing all the stuff we say we're going to do. There is always 1 or 2 items that's a bigger item where it's like, okay, I still haven't done this. I know I need to, you know?
Mhm.
But for the most part, each week we come back and it's good to know throughout the week, like, this is what we said we're going to do.
Mhm.
And so if there's ever like downtime where we're wanting to be productive and creative, like we can easily go to the list and be like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. For me, that's really helpful.
What do you tell people who don't have roommates? Can they like rent Brandy for a little while for
Yeah,
purposes of
so-
goal setting, or how?
For a limited time offer, Brandy is for sale.
She's delayed too, so she doesn't even know what we're talking about.
No, it's funny because I do that with Brandy, but I told another friend of mine, one of my best friends, afterwards that I was doing this, and he said that is so freaking cool. And he's not a photographer, he's an artist. And he said, you know, can we start doing this also, like you and I? And I was like, totally. So now I have Brandy Monday and Fridays, and then my friend Blaine on Wednesday nights. So yeah. It's good to break it up like that.
Wow, that's incredible. There's a lot of goal setting going on.
Yeah, if you don't have a roommate, you can have someone through Skype. Really, you can have someone through Skype.
Yeah, find a goal setter roommate here in the comment section. You might be able to your friends.
I would say let's pair these people up, my photographer friends in the comment section, and then they can move into our apartment complex.
That would be really I like the last transition. I didn't catch that there, but that would be really cool
for you.
Yeah, it would be nice to have like pair people up like that, and or like have a site that, not like a dating site, where instead of dating you could definitely find like your creative best friend, you know, like
totally. And it's funny, like Brandy and I really stumbled upon each other. Like we weren't looking for each other, right?
How did you stumble upon each other exactly?
So I was about to move to LA. I was saving up money and getting ready for that. I had lived there briefly before, and I was like, okay, now this is time to get really serious. LA is the trajectory I want to go for fashion photography. And meanwhile, and I think it was right when I was in India working on a project over there. And then once I got back, it was like, okay, I'm going to move within the next few months. Like that's the plan. And then Felix Coons, who's a super talented photographer, and a friend of mine, posted on Facebook that he was subleasing his bedroom in his New York apartment. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I commented and he responded, and he was like, Emily, you should totally do this. And I was like, man, no, like I can't. It's not smart. Like I've done enough reckless decisions in the past few years that like now it's time to be an adult, right? And he was like, okay. And then he came back to me a week later. He's like, why don't we just hop on a FaceTime?
You're like, leave me a voice message.
Well, so for anyone who knows Felix, he is one of the best people in the world at convincing you to do anything, right? Like he's so suave. And by the end of the conversation, you're like, that is a good idea.
Yeah.
He's really, really good at that. And yeah, Brody's like, I should really go to Cape Town. Last year, you guys, we were having a retreat in Cape Town. And within a week, it was like a week before you were going to have the retreat, and you and Felix got together, and you're like, it would be a really smart idea for you to go. So that's what Brandy is referencing. But yeah, I ended up subleasing his room. And then Brandy, at the meantime, subleased his roommate's room, Alice, who's also a very talented photographer. And so we moved in without knowing anything about each other. Through the photography community, we were friends on Facebook, but didn't even know we were friends on Facebook, just because you add a bunch of photographers that you have a ton of mutual friends with. So we were like, wow, cool. And then it didn't take long before I was like, she's all right.
And that was a good experience too for you to do that, because you change your pace and your life also changed trajectory.
All of that, but also like again, being an introvert, going back to all of that, when I moved in, like Felix has a long desk that him and Alice work at, which is similar to what Brandy and I have now. We also live down the hall from him now. But it was like, oh shit, like I have to work next to someone. And for my introvert heart, that doesn't sound good, you know? But it's so good. And now it's really great because, again, we work right next to each other. And if I am just feeling in a rut or I'm not doing anything and I see Brandy's working next to me, I'm like, man, like, yeah, I got to work too. You know, it's just like a good check-in and motivation. Or if we're retouching, we can like easily look over and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, it's just a very creative environment. So yeah, after 2 months of living together, I was like, okay, time to move to New York. And we just moved down the hall and I never left.
Molly says, I want to join in on this. Please adopt me.
So I've already told Molly, like, she has a space here. We have vegan brunch set up. Like, Molly is already a part of our home in our hearts.
She also asked you, what is your favorite vegan recipe?
It's so hard because it's changing all the time. Along with other things, I get really obsessed with one dish for about 3 months, and then I change it the next 3 months because I'm sick of it.
So what's on your agenda?
Right now, I really love, it's like a fall-inspired dish. It's called, I'm like, I better name it. It's like delicata squash gratine. So, so I mix like cauliflower rice and polenta with garlic and some vegan cheese, and I like make all of that in a pan until it's this nice like mushy consistency. And then on top I put like roasted delicata squash, and then I like garnish it with some nice microgreens, and it's really beautiful. I wish I could like drop it in the chat, but I don't think I can do that. It's beautiful. You gotta trust me.
Molly's taken 3 and 4 planes to get here, so she's just
we this couch turns into a bed, Molly.
That's incredible. Well, that's fantastic. I just wanted to thank you for being here today. I think what we'll do is next time we will do the group discussion where we have quite a few people join in on a chat, and then we can have a little fun experience. Maybe we could all watch something together and record our feedback on it.
I love that idea. Man, Vicky, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And if anybody have any questions, you can leave it in the comments. It was great having you, Emily. I really got a chance to know you even better, more than I did before, and I hope everyone else got to know a bit about you that even I didn't know too. So
thank you so much.
All right, well, take care, guys. If you just tuned in late, you can watch the rebroadcast after this is done, or head over to my YouTube, which has all the conversations posted. And if you have anyone that you'd like to see next time, just leave them in the comments, and I'll be happy to approach some of them, and we'll have some more casual conversations in the future.
Goodbye.